Justin,
Guys, we're at 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Thank you, buddy. Tell Justin that one of his lights is off up here. His Oxy LED lights. Maybe I'm up. Test, Justin. So I got one kind of in the middle, Justin.
Station. Now. We're talking sports. It's time for the Saturday Sports Countdown with Brett Pritchard, Randy Lee, and Luke Robinson. Auburn, Alabama.
All right, when JJ gets done talking, it's all yours.
This is the Saturday Sports Countdown. To be a part of the program, call 256-234-6221. Now, let's join Brett, Randy, and Luke for the Saturday Sports Countdown.
Welcome into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. Randy Lee alongside Luke Robinson this morning. Beautiful downtown Alexander City at JR Sports Bar and Grill. And, Luke, I thought we would get a storm yesterday afternoon. It passed right through. I don't think we got too much whatsoever, and we're needing some rain in these parts. And as I've been walking outside and doing a little work this week, I've been thanking the good Lord above that I'm no longer 17 or 18 years old and got to put the pads on and get out there in this type of heat. Can you imagine what those kids have gone through this week?
I can't. I mean, Randy, I don't know how you did it in high school. I mean, I remember just some practices in junior high, and they were just awful. And I'll tell you, my brother and I have been playing a lot of tennis, and, I mean, I'm soaked head to toe after one set. I don't know how they do it. And it feels so much hotter now. I don't remember it being this hot. I mean, like now it's stinging hot. It's not just the humidity. It also stings you. But God bless those kids, and that's just yet another reason everybody should go out and support them when it comes time on Friday nights this upcoming fall, because they have definitely put the work in.
256-234-6221 is our phone number, and the difference here on Sports Blitz is we like to talk high school sports as well as college athletics and professional, but we normally start off the first hour with high school. Once the season gets going, we'll kind of run down Friday night's action, lead into some action that is going to happen in the following week. Right now, we'll skip a couple of segments there and start off with Auburn and Alabama practice, because, Luke, that's the storyline. That's the water cooler talk, it feels like to me. I don't know about you, but it's a perfect time of year to highlight kids that we've heard a lot about, recruits that we've been talking about, it seems like, for 3 years by the time they end up on our campus. It's crazy how recruiting has changed over the last decade to 20 years, but there's a lot of excitement because Auburn and Alabama's got a ton of great recruits in.
They do, and Alabama's got its first scrimmage of the year coming up today, and dare I say it's as important as A-Day was. I mean, you're going to have Jacob Coker against Blake Sims, and what looked like a surefire blowout, Jacob Coker's it, that's the end of the story, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Blake Sims has made a move, and he is making this thing a tighter race than it should be. In my opinion, I've seen Blake Sims, and to be fair to Blake Sims, Randy, I had a coach tell a friend of mine that, hey, the fans don't give Blake Sims enough credit because they've only seen him on A-Day, and that was far and away his worst practice of the spring. He just did not perform that day. And if that had been a random Tuesday and he had played like he had the rest of the spring on A-Day, everybody would say, oh, my gosh, I mean, Jacob Coker's in for a battle. But it turns out he had his worst day on A-Day, and it didn't look good at all. And so fans already gave up on him. Well, here's the thing. He's come back and played a little bit better, and Jacob Coker has come back down to earth a little bit. I never bought into all the Jacob Coker hype myself, but I know some fans thought, well, he's coming from Jimbo Fisher. He's coming from Florida State. They won the national championship, and he's 6'5", and he's powerful, and he's got an arm, and he's all these other things, and he's just going to step right in and be awesome. I think what you've seen out of Jacob Coker these first few practices of fall is he's pushing, he's pressing, he's having a hard time with his accuracy, and to me that is a sign that he is trying too hard. He's trying to win the job on every single play, and you can't win the job on every single play. You've just got to, I mean, you're going to throw an interception, you're going to have an overthrow, and be okay with that, and then just move past it and move on. But when you're trying to win the job and you want to live up to some of your expectations, sometimes you press, and I think that's what Jacob Coker's doing, which has allowed Blake Sims to move up. So these two guys are going to go mano-a-mano today, and today may be the day that Blake Sims overtakes Jacob Coker. I can't believe I'm saying that.
256-234-6221. Love to hear from you. And, Luke, of course I don't keep up with Alabama recruiting anywhere near like you do. And I don't keep up with recruiting in general in the Mobile area like you do, because you've got a really good friend down there, and I'm sure he talks about it. Jimmy Stein talks about it all the time and keeps you up to date. By the way, if you're looking for a good podcast out there to keep up with Alabama athletics, Luke and Jimmy do a tremendous job with Talking Tuscaloosa, and we'll put a link up on our site so you can keep up with that. But Jacob Coker, was he a top-notch recruit out of high school. I know he was wasn't he an outstanding basketball player in the state his senior year?
He was. I think he led the Mobile region in scoring, which is no small task. I mean, Mobile is loaded with athletes every single year. Jacob Coger was, I think he wound up being a 4-star kid, probably started out as a 3-star, relative unknown. He hadn't had a lot of playing time. He was behind A.J. McCarron. But he goes to a camp as a relative unknown. He goes to Florida State's camp, and he tears it up. He just absolutely kills it. And Jimbo Fisher offers him on the spot, says, look, I'm going to offer you this scholarship, but there was a caveat to it. I don't want you to take a lot of visits. I don't want to have to worry about you. This is going to be it. Because I think Jimbo Fisher knew if this guy goes to other camps, his offer list is going to explode. Well, he honors his Florida State commitment. There's some other issues there. I think that, I think the family, I don't believe I'm talking out of school here, may have been a little upset with Alabama and Auburn for not pressing more to get his commitment. And that's certainly understandable. Then he goes to Alabama and Mississippi All-Star game. I got to see him up close and personal. And this is while he was committed to Florida State. I remember thinking to myself, Alabama and Auburn are missing out here. This is the kind of guy you keep in state. The measurables are there. That's what I really care about. And it's not just measurables, and he just is totally inaccurate and can't throw it from me to the entrance of JR's. I mean, he's got an arm on him. He's pretty accurate. He's got speed. He's probably a 4.7 guy, my guess, 4.8 guy, which is not bad for more of a pro-style type quarterback. I think that he was not a relative unknown. He was at first, and then he burst onto the scene. He wasn't a 5-star quarterback, but he has had some tutelage under Jimbo Fisher, which I think is a big deal. He's got into a battle with Jameis Winston, who's won a Heisman Trophy. I think that's a big deal. So I think Alabama fans had the right to have some expectations for this kid. At the same time, as Alabama fans tend to do on occasion, the expectations went above and beyond the call of duty.
256-234-6221. You can find us also on Twitter and Facebook, and you can interact with us there. Let's go about another couple of minutes on Alabama. We'll move over and talk about Auburn. Want to hear from you. We'll talk a little high school athletics here in the next couple of segments after this. But Derrick Henry, where does he end up in carries this year? It seems like a tough mix to me when you've got as many great backs as Alabama does. We've seen it at Auburn work in the past. We've seen it work at Alabama in the past with Trent Richardson and Mark Ingram. But does Derrick Henry move up the list? Does he get as many carries as T.J. Yeldon does this year?
I don't think he gets as many as T.J. Yeldon. I mean, people forget. T.J. They look at TJ's stats last year or look at the games and disregard the stats and think he had a sophomore slump. He didn't. He had more yards. He had more touchdowns. He had more receiving yards. He had more carries. But he averaged 0.3 of a yard or 0.3 of a yard less per carry than he did the previous year, and on fewer carries. So what that tells me is he was more explosive as a freshman, and that's what people missed. They missed the fact that he hadn't gotten as many yards per carry. And also, Jimmy and I said this on the podcast, the thing that people remember most about T.J. Yeldon as a freshman was getting the big-time 3rd and 4 in the SEC championship against Georgia on a handoff late in the ball game. I mean, it was a very odd, I say odd play, it worked, but T.J. Yeldon had to fight off a tackler to get those extra yards, and that led the very next play to the pass to Amari Cooper for the lead. What they remember him most for last year is not being able to get a 4th and half a yard against Auburn. Now, it wasn't TJ's fault. I mean, people missed their blocks, missed their assignment, then TJ just got tackled. I mean, it's the way it works. But that sticks out in people's minds. And so I feel like that's why people think TJ's taking a step back. Going back to Derrick Henry, let's be fair here. All we've seen Derrick Henry explode against is Oklahoma one time. And Oklahoma had no idea he was coming. We had no idea he was coming. Now, he looked like an incredible freak doing things that running back shouldn't do.
And he does in the preseason, too. Just
he does.
When you're looking at him, he passes the high test.
He does. But it makes me – I still go back to, and I can't help but get this out of my – I can't get this out of my head. Why in the world wasn't he on the field against Auburn when we needed one of those 4th and 1s? Derrick Henry looks like the kind of guy that you give him the ball, it's 2 yards. If he gets tackled behind the line of scrimmage, he's going to get 2 yards somehow. I mean, he's going to lean forward. He's big enough. He's just going to fall 2 yards forward. And he could take it to the house. So why wasn't he in there against Auburn? Did we not trust him yet? I don't know what the story was. My point being that I don't want to fall into the Derrick Henry incredible hype yet either when we've got T.J. Yeldon who for all intents and purposes, should be the Alabama all-time leading rusher after this season's done.
256-234-6221. Couple more minutes here on the opening segment. Let's talk some Auburn. Auburn started off. It looks like Jeremy Johnson will definitely get the nod and the start against Arkansas. That's getting quite a bit of the headlines. Alex Kozan being out for the season is a tough loss for Auburn. They will move Avery Young down from a right tackle position to a guard position. Looks like Avery Young could move up and down the line anywhere that he was put. So, Luke, as much of a loss as we feel like it is with Alex Kozan being out for the season?
I think it's a big deal. I don't think you can shortchange those things. I think that's a big deal. And losing Greg Robinson's a big deal. I mean, just ask Alabama. They bought back a lot of linemen in 2000, the year they lost Chris Samuel. And, you lose your leader. You lose the guy that everybody knows is going to block his man. So if I just kind of do my job, we'll be okay. It's a big deal. Offensive linemen are not a dime a dozen. You can't just plug them back in. There's a reason they're starters. Robinson Therizi, there's been a lot of rumors out there about his suspension. I don't know if it's true or not. I would doubt that it is. I mean, you would think we'd know about a 6-game suspension by now, wouldn't you?
I think so. And I don't think he would be in the opening practice back out there with the starters.
I totally agree with that. That would make no sense to me. But as far as the suspension of Nick Marshall, I want to see what this suspension means. If it's just not going to start, if Jeremy Johnson goes in there for a play, hands it off, a la Reggie Slack, Jeff Berger, then I'm going to be real disappointed.
And I have to say, I really, really doubt that.
Well, I'm just saying we've seen it happen before, and I would feel that way about Saban. I was that way about Saban when DJ Hall came in the game against Louisiana Monroe.
Yeah, I remember that.
I hated it. I think that's exactly what you're teaching, sending the wrong message. But if Nick Marshall, and I probably wouldn't have suspended Nick Marshall at all myself. I mean, I might have made him do some things in practice, or I might have made him run some steps. But I could buy the fact that he's suspended for a game because he was already booted from another university. I could buy that too, like that's his first strike. But if he's only suspended for a play or a series, I think that's bunk. I think that's a bad message to the team. That's my personal opinion. But it's going to be interesting to see what he does there. But I think they could beat Arkansas with Reese Dismukes at quarterback. So I don't think it's an issue.
256-234-6221, one of the strengths it looks like for Auburn, or at least a player to me that is getting a lot of hype for a breakout season. I think Montravius Adams, if you see his body type, Luke, he looks night and day in comparison to his freshman year. He was a man amongst boys in high school. We knew he was a great talent out of Georgia, came from a lower classification and moved up. But he had a nice article this week where he goes back home and all his coaches and the people at home are saying, wow, what happened to you? And he's at 300 pounds still. Mm-hmm. Gabe Wright's lost down some weight and will move out to place him in. But Montravius Adams at 300 pounds, we're hoping as Auburn fans that he can have a stretch like Nick Fairley had, maybe not be as good as what we saw Nick Fairley do in year 2, because it took Nick Fairley quite a bit of time to get to where he ended up also. But I think Montravius Adams is poised for a breakout season.
I think he could. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Casanova McKenzie. He sort of gained a little weight, and they don't know necessarily where he's going to be now.
I kind of expected that. He was a 235, 240-pound guy out of high school. When you're that big in high school, it's pretty easy to put 15 or 20 pounds on in college.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering if he's grown into a no man's land. I mean, and I've seen it happen at every school. You got a guy who now they've gotten to a size where they're not a great fit here, they're not a great fit there, and I know an optimist would look at it and say, oh, that just means he can play both positions. No, it doesn't really work that way more often than not. I mean, you need the type of body to be in that position. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him, because I loved him coming out of high school.
Yeah, one player for Alabama that it did work out for was Courtney Upshaw. He ended up, 265 pounds?
Yeah.
And he was a 225 maybe coming out of high school out of Eufaula, and ends up with another 40 pounds of bulk and ends up with a first-round grade in the NFL draft. So Casanova McKenzie had a nice year last year. Auburn fans, myself included, hope that you can move to a hybrid position and make some plays out there. Up against our first break here on the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. We'd love to hear from you. When we come back, we're going to run down the Alabama Sports Writers Association top 10 polls for 7A down to 1A. And, Luke, it's kind of weird to say 7A now, but we got a whole new classification. a lot more fun, I believe, personally, in the 6A class. You're going to see some of the best football that we'll see in the state this upcoming year. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Clear.
Randy Lee, check your phone, and you're going in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. Randy Lee alongside Luke Robinson this morning. 800-782-0108, 256-234-6221 is our phone number. And thanks for tuning in. Kowaliga Country 97.5. Talk FM 95.9 over in the Auburn market, as well as Channel 3 here locally. Got to get used to that. Was Channel 2 on charter here locally, and it is Channel 3 now. But we're at JR Sports Bar and Grill, as we are each and every Saturday from 10 to 12. Love for you to come out. Bring your kids out in uniform, practice uniform, whatever they're out there playing their athletics in, they can come in and eat off the kids' menu for $1.99. Can't ask for better corporate partners than JR Sports Bar and Grill. And we're going to run down the Alabama Sports Writers Association top 10 poll, and we're going to start with 7A. Before we run it down, I really like this change. We've said it a number of times, but it's the top 32 teams enrollment in the state of Alabama. Yes, it's going to be tough on some of those teams that are stuck out in nowhere land like Jeff Davis, but they were going to be there anyway, I think, honestly, Luke. So when you point to some of these teams, they won't struggle in some of the other sports, but in football they were they'd be 0-10 in 6A. They'd be 0-10. I'm not saying that they're going to end up that way. I'm saying in years past, maybe Jeff Davis comes back up and has a good team. But I really like the change, and it gives some teams in 6A that haven't had a chance to play for state titles a chance.
Yeah, and, people are going to get a little upset and say, well, we'll never have a chance to win and because we're in 7A and Hoover's there and all these other things. But, it wasn't fair when high school teams had to go up against Bo Jackson, too. Only one team can have Bo Jackson. I mean, some teams are going to have advantages every year. Some teams are going to have a Rock Thomas. Some teams going to have a Bobby Humphrey. I mean, that's just the way it works. And the only thing I can tell you is try and get better and work on your little league system. Hoover didn't – it's not like Hoover just walked into a situation where a bunch of people just wanted to come there and they gathered these folks illegally or something. If you remember, Rush Probst organically grew their football program. He went down to the little league system and made sure people knew what was going on, made sure people were in jive with what he wanted to do, and it grew the system and it made it great. So why do people hate on Hoover? I never understood that. I mean, they made it better.
I don't think that it's the hating. I can say, though, sitting here in Alexander City, Alabama, and I'll throw Opelika in there too, because I feel like Alex City and Opelika are much the same. Auburn High School had 670 kids in the top 3 18 years ago when we were in high school, Luke. You were a little bit older than me, so it wasn't 18. Now they got 1,700.
Yeah.
So after a while, it really does. The equality of those teams aren't what they once were. I've had a lot of locals say, "Boy, y'all sure did. Y'all used to have no problem going over there and playing Auburn and Prattville." But those two schools have more than doubled. They've almost tripled in enrollment size in the last 18 years. I don't think that you should be in the same classification as you were at one time.
Okay, I get that too, and that's why we went to a 7A.
Yes.
But there's going to be a bottom feeder group on 7A. There's a bottom feeder group on 6A. And here's the thing, and I do not mean to disparage my community, love Alexander City, but Auburn and Opelika in those areas, they did some other things that maybe we didn't do. I mean, we had some issues here in our community where some businesses left at a certain time, and we were lost for a while. Now we've got things turned around, and we've got some things going in the right direction now. Some good things are happening in our community now that are certainly helping us. But for a while, we were a little, a decade, 15 years ago, we were a little lost as a community, which it set us back. Meanwhile, Auburn moved forward, and so they made themselves a little more marketable. And this thing may turn around one day. These things are cyclical.
I think the crazy thing, though, is if you look in this community, the enrollment numbers have been the exact same for the last 20 years. They have gone up and down 15 to 20 to 30 kids in the top 3 grades. You're talking maybe 10 kids per grade difference in the last 20 years. When I say that, are you surprised that I say that?
A little.
So it tells you, yes, I've heard so many say that, well, it's a different group. Well, probably not.
But it may be, gosh, it's so hard to talk about this without getting in trouble a little bit because I'm not trying to disparage what we have ever done as a community. I'm trying to say that, let's face facts. We had more people at one time, and we had we had some things rolling. We had some things rolling, and I know what you're saying about enrollment, but maybe we had more people that were involved in the community back 25 years ago when everything was kicking butt with Russell, et cetera. And then some things changed, obviously, and we were lost as a community, which maybe made us lost as a high school football program. It trickled down. But we've got it together. And, Randy, I'll give you a lot of credit. The Sportz Foundation stuff, you're incredibly in the community out there doing things, organizing things, and you're helping getting everything turned back around, and you can see it. It's out there. It's easy to see that Alex City's on the uptick, and I think that will, in turn, help the football program. It'll trickle down. It's already starting. A couple of years ago we were 1-9, and now we're going into the second, third round of the playoffs every year, it seems like. And I think that we'll continue to be a threat because the quality of player expectations are higher. If you raise your expectations, people will want to work harder and more. And I think that that's all helping. But my point being that it's not all there's going to be teams in 7A that just you got to draw the line somewhere. It's that way with everything. If you really wanted to have just a 7A that was true and everything was fair, you'd have Hoover and Bob Jones in it, and that's it.
I've heard so many say, and we'll run down this Alabama Sports Writers Association poll here shortly, but so many said that when Opelika, and you were there, we were calling the football game, when Opelika played for the 6A state championship at Jordan-Hare Stadium, and the coaches and the administrators here in the state looked down in the stands, and we had our largest crowd ever at a state championship game, I think they all pointed and they said, look, we got to do something. Because this community right here, they have worked extremely hard. They've had outstanding football teams. They've struggled to get over the hump to play for a state championship. If we open up this other classification, groups like this get more of an opportunity. Doesn't mean they always get there, but they do have a better opportunity to play for state championships. That's the reason I really like the way that it's changed, and you'll see that when you're talking about the rankings here in a second. Let's go ahead and take another break. We come back, we'll run down those rankings for you. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Clear.
Brought to you by...
Three, two, one.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. Randy Lee alongside Luke Robinson. 800-782-0108, 256-234-6221. It's a beautiful day out here in Alexander City. I'm sure the same over in Lee County and the Auburn and Opelika area and all the surrounding communities that are tuning in on 95.9. We appreciate it. Hopefully you've gotten used to this program. One of the things that we love to talk about is high school athletics. We're part of the AHSA Radio Network crew that calls the state championship games. The Champions Challenge will be our first event of the year in the upcoming week. So high school football only a couple of weeks out. Alabama Sports Writers Association comes out with their first poll of the year. When you look down to the names, it's pretty much the same nemesis we see every year, Luke.
And again, it should be. I mean, look, you don't have to be Nostradamus to know that Hoover is going to be ranked number one just about every year. It doesn't matter the situation. You don't have to know the players. This year they just happen to have a ton of talent. They may not have the big name at quarterback that they have had in the past, but Bradrick Shaw is a fantastic running back. Christian Bell is a linebacker committed to Alabama. Darrell Williams, a linebacker committed to Auburn. They have another linebacker that's a junior that's going to be one of the top probably 100 players in the country next year. So they've just got talent everywhere.
Let's run down this top 10 poll for 7A for the first time, and Hoover gets all 32 votes for the first place team. They've won 30 consecutive ball games. They're ranked number 4 in the country by Max Preps heading into the season. As Luke ran down, probably more talent on that team than they've had in years past. If they could run this off and win 45 consecutive games through the state of Alabama, and they also jump out in other parts of the country and play, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't get the national championship this year.
I totally agree. This team may actually be better than last year's team. They don't have anybody, in my opinion, on the talent level with a Marlon Humphrey. Marlon Humphrey was a freak, but they have more really good players.
800-782-0108. Let's run down the rest of the top 10 here. Hoover 1, Bob Jones 2, McGill-Tulane 3. If you point to McGill-Tulane, I think they're the largest private school in the state of Alabama. Mm-hmm. They finished 12-2 last year, an outstanding program down there in the Mobile region. Spain Park 4. Spain Park has to somehow figure out a way to get over this Hoover hump. I don't think they've ever beat them in the history of the school.
They haven't, and I don't think they're going to this year. I feel like if there was a team out there that may be ranked a little high, I think Spain Park may be it. I would probably have Auburn over Spain Park.
Auburn is number 5 as we're getting into our local communities. Auburn played for a state championship for the first time this past year. Played extremely well defensively. I think the game ended up 20-3, but defensively, Hoover barely had 140 yards of total offense. They just didn't do too much. Rashawn Evans had a lot to do with that, but Auburn as a whole had an outstanding defense last year.
And if you remember, it was a very sloppy game. The weather was terrible, but I believe it was only 7-0 or 6-0 at the half. It was a very low-scoring game. I mean, Auburn was right there, and they just couldn't get anything going offensively.
This tells you what the state thinks about Jamie DuBose, as he is the head coach at Central of Phoenix City. They finished 6-4 last year. The state decides, though, that they will come in as the number 6 team in 7A to kick things off. They've got a ton of talent, Luke. I'm not surprised to see them up that high.
They got a kid named John Broussard who is going to be one of the top cornerbacks in the country next year. They've got a very nice running back, a running back situation over there. They've got very nice. But Jamie DuBose, we interviewed him at the not Champions Challenge, the North-South game, and he is really, really excited. You could see his eyes light up when he talks about the athletes on this team.
Foley is number 7. Vestavia Hills number 8. They made it to a semifinal matchup last year at 11-3. So Vestavia Hills continuing down their strong path. A team that a little surprised to be in the top 10, but I'm not sure exactly what all they have athlete-wise. But Fairhope has had some really good years over the last 10. One of our ex-coaches here at Benjamin Russell was the head coach at Fairhope for quite a while. That was Mark Lassiter. He had a good run there. They come in at number 9. Prattville back in the top 10. They finished last year 7-3. Prattville, the number 10 team. Other teams from our local area, only one other team from our local area receives other votes, and they come in as the number 11 team in 7A, and that's Smith Station to start the season.
Yeah, and I think Smith Station should be in there. They've got a linebacker named Monte Cabin, I believe is how you say it. He's pretty spectacular. He will be he got offered by Oklahoma the other day. He will be playing big-time college football. I would probably have Smith Station in there, and I would move one of these other guys out, like a Prattville. I tell you, Prattville sure seems to be slipping a little bit. I mean, they just keep getting a hair worse and a hair worse record-wise every year, and that's what kind of frightens me. So maybe they can turn this thing around. But you want to talk about big games. Prattville welcomes Central Phoenix City, I believe, on September 19th. That'll be a game if you're looking to travel somewhere and go check out good high school football. That may be the one you want to go see.
256-234-6221. Call in if you've cover or around a team that's not on this list that we should be talking more about, or if you want to talk some more about each of these teams, players that are on these teams that don't get enough attention. That's what this program is for. Love to hear from you. Had Beauregard's coach on with us on Tuesday night. We're going to try to also incorporate some other coaches in our local area to talk about their high school program. As Smitty Grider goes over to the Montgomery area, Park Crossing is where he'll be this next year. Coach Carter will take over at Beauregard. When we get down to them, I'll let you talk about that a little bit. Class 6A is where I think a ton of interest will be. Some teams that haven't had an opportunity to play for state championships will have plenty of opportunity now, but they got to get through, and we'll come back after this break, but they got to get through the number one team in 5A last year, the last several years. They're now the number one team in Class 6A. That's Spanish Fort. 29 first-place votes. The only other three teams getting first-place votes were Clay Chalkville, Shades Valley, and Carver of Montgomery. So good luck with Spanish Fort. We've seen them several times. An outstanding program down in the southern part of the state. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Clear. 20. $15. $5 to bump.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. Randy Lee alongside Luke Robinson. Thanks for tuning in out there. Make sure to come out to JR Sports Bar and Grill. They've now got a happy hour special Monday through Friday from 4 to 6. Plenty of good specials on that. We've got a nice new sign up here at JR's, and love for you to be a part of our programs as we will be on from 6 to 7 each Tuesday night with the Lake Martin Sports Roundup leading into Sports Blitz Live. So thanks for tuning in. Sports Call throughout the week. We're handling 4 days of that also, and plenty of sports to talk about, and hopefully you'll be able to tune us in. Moving into Class 6A, I think that's where a ton of interest is. And when you're sitting in this community in Alexander City, Benjamin Russell High School, I think we were the third-ranked team in 5A last year. So, Luke, you and I during the break, we were talking, where would we have come in this year? Well, when I looked down the Class 6A rankings, only 2 teams that were 5A programs last year come into the top 10. The rest of these teams were 6A programs last year that moved down. I call it moving down a classification because they're now the second largest classification. Spanish Fort, though, was a 5A program. They come in as the number 1 team in Class 6A, 29 out of 33 first-place votes, very deserving.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I can't believe they didn't get every single one of the first-place votes, to be honest with you. And, Randy, you said it off air that if Spanish Fort were in 7A, you'd vote them number 2. I have to agree with you, really. I mean, they look so powerful. I mean, when they get into the playoffs, I mean, they are absolutely steamrolling folks. Clay Chalkwell's very good, and they've put some talent into SEC level schools. Shades Valley, Keith Mixon committed to Mississippi State. He's kind of a do everything guy. And then you got Darren Payne, one of the top defensive tackles in the country, who should be committing in December. Those guys are great, but I think Spanish Fort's still probably easily the most complete team in all of 6A.
Class 6A, Spanish Fort 1, Clay Chalkwell 2, Shades Valley 3, Carver of Montgomery 4, and then in our local area, Opelika comes in at number 5. They were 7-4 last year. Several very close defeats out of that 4-loss season. Opelika extremely talented. They're also on one of those nice little strings where they've got a bunch of Division I talent on their team, Luke.
They are. They look very strong again this year. Now, that may be a team, in my opinion, of all the teams you've listed, I think Carver and Opelika could give Spanish Fort the most trouble, and it's ironic because they're behind 2 other teams.
Florence 6, Daphne 7, Blunt 8, Muscle Shoals 9, Bessemer City 10. So 2 out of the top 10 were 5A programs last year, Muscle Shoals and Spanish Fort. And they took on each other in that state championship game, which Spanish Fort won. Moving down to Class 5A, only 1 team from the local area, and moving down, we're only going to name out the teams in the local area. Central of Clay County comes in tied for 4th with Jackson. Benjamin Russell will be on the road week 2 to take on Central of Clay County. Danny Horn going back to where it's not the same school. It's a merged school, but Danny Horn is, I don't think I'm going over the ledge saying he's a legend in the Clay County area, as he won 6 state championships for Clay County. Central Clay County will welcome him back, I'm sure, as we will go over there with Benjamin Russell to play what looks like one of the best games in week 2 in the state.
Absolutely can't wait for that one. We'll be doing the scoreboard show, and that'll certainly be a highlight game.
And that is in Class 5A. Moving down to Class 4A, we've got 2 local area teams that come in. Dable High School, ranked 3rd in the state. I really like this team this year. I like, of course, I like the defensive play. They've been great defensively, especially talent-wise. But for some reason, I feel like Dable's going to get over the hump this year. I really do. Leeds comes in number 1. UMS Wright number 2. UMS Wright has been Dable's nemesis, but the quarterback's gone. Now, who do they roll into there? That's the crazy thing about private schools. It's not like you're growing them up and you're grooming them for excellence. You can go out there and pick you one.
Go get you one.
Go get you one if you need a quarterback. So I don't know about UMS Wright. I like Dable's chances against Leeds. I saw them in a championship game last year. I think Dable would have defeated them last year. For some reason, I think Dable gets over the hump this year.
Yeah, and when you say the hump, I assume you mean UMS Wright, because it sure seems like UMS Wright knocks them out of the playoffs every single year.
And last year was one of the wildest games you've seen in state history. And Gunnar Roach was there at quarterback,
Yep.
and they won the state championship the year before. They win a wild one at Dable last year. For some reason, I think that if you take that quarterback out of play, though, now this year that Dable, I think, still has the talent level. They've got as much talent as we've seen them with in a long, long time. And your thoughts on y'all had the kid that's committed to
Anthony Jennings.
Your thoughts on Jennings this year?
I tell you, Bama Online just released their top 15 kids in the state, who they think their top 15 are. And I mean, look, I expect somewhat of a bias in there, pro-Alabama style. But they moved Anthony Jennings up to the fourth best player in the state. And apparently he has gone to some camps and done very, very well and held his own against some very big names. And so I think that he is making a name for himself. I mean, is he the fourth best player in the state? It's a pretty good year for the state. If he is, that's fantastic for him. I just can't wait to see him play a little more often. I know that he's incredibly athletic. There's a fantastic highlight of him catching a touchdown pass as a tight end last year. He may end up playing tight end at Alabama. Who knows?
I think he's got a good motor. I've watched their spring game from this past year, and he gets after the football, and he passes the eye test too. A lot of times, I remember Cameron Blankenship telling me before he got his scholarship offer to UAB, the coaches wanted to see him and said, "Only thing you got to do, son, you look good on film, but we need you to come in and pass the eye test."
That's right.
And I think it takes that, especially with lineman type.
Well, it does, and we had Anthony Jennings on Sports Blitz Live. He actually came in studio, did an interview with him, and his whole family came, and to me that says a lot too. He comes in, you know he's got support, you know he's a yes sir, no sir kid, you know he's grown up right, he's respectful, he's pretty humble for a guy who's as big as he is and highly touted as he is. So I'm definitely pulling for him. I'll be pulling for him no matter where he went to school, and I think that he's going to have a chance to do some things, but he's going to have to be a leader this year. I mean, if you really want to get over that hump like you're talking about, you've got to have somebody take control and say, I'm not losing this game.
Let's close out the Alabama Sports Writers Association top 10. One other team locally is number 10, Trinity, over in the Montgomery region, as they finished 8-3 this past year. Down in 2A, Lynette's got one of the better programs in all of 2A. They come in at number 3. And in 1A, Lochapoka's always got a great football team, and they come in at number 6. That closes us out. If you want to call in and talk about any of those teams, we'd love to hear from you. 256-234-6221. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
3. Don't forget David in Millerville. 2, 1.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. About 45 minutes into the program, hour and 15 left with you. 800-782-0108, 256-234-6221. Love to hear from you. We've talked a ton about high school athletics. Luke and I love it. Brett Pritchard will be on with us in the next little bit. He'll talk about it. We're excited about the HSA Radio Network kicking off in the next couple of weeks with the Champions Challenge. Excited that we've got a local area team playing in it again for year 2, as Dable will be over there. Very deserving for Dable to have an opportunity to go play in the Champions Challenge. Benjamin Russell went last year and won their game, so hopefully Dable will go over and do the same. 800-782-0108. Let's go back to the phone lines. David in Millerville, you're on Saturday Sports Countdown.
Yes, sir.
Hey, David.
Y'all do a great job, and I like listening to y'all. But there's one time, there's a huge Alabama fans that's up here that listen to y'all. Would like y'all to give them a plug every now and then.
Well, we definitely will. We opened up the first segment of the program with our very own Luke Robinson over here giving an update on Alabama's practice and Jacob Coker and all that's going on there. And pretty much the entire second hour of the program every Saturday, we're going to move into college football and talk a ton about it. And so hang in there with us. We know that when Brett and I are up here, it's swayed a little bit more towards Auburn. But we do have a Bammer over here to our right, and he'll try to fill you in.
Hey, David, do you have any specific questions about Alabama? Because you know they've got a huge scrimmage today.
Right. Yes, I do. Today will be the question, that everybody's going to get their answers to.
Are you talking about quarterback?
Right.
Yes, sir. And I talked a little bit about that at the beginning of the show, but we'll delve into it a little more deeply later on, so just stay tuned with us, okay?
Okay. I appreciate it.
Thank you, David.
David, thanks so much for your phone call. 800-782-0108, 256-234-6221. We've got the new RTR and WDE Sports Blitz 2014 T-shirts. We're going to have a social media interaction. We're going to give away one of those today, so make sure to go on there, and Justin will put some type of game, whether it's a retweet or a like or something, as Luke Robinson.
I'm sporting it today.
Sporting it. We've got the state of Alabama with Auburn colors and Alabama colors. So you've got your option on both. And we'll also put your name in the hat for all of you that call in today, and we're going to give away one of those as well. So David automatically goes into the hat for one of our Sports Blitz 2014 T-shirts. Look, all you got to do is call in and say, look, I'm a Dable Tiger fan. I'm a Benjamin Russell High School fan. I think we're going to have a great year this year, and maybe ask us a quick question in the next hour, and we'll delve into that. So autonomy has been the talk, Luke. And it looks like the SEC, Mike Slive, and the Power 5 conferences got what they were looking for in this past week.
They certainly did. And then a judge ruled just yesterday that players, in the end, players will wind up being able to get somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000. I don't think anybody understands the ramifications of all this yet, or even really understands the ruling, because as Jay Billis on ESPN Radio this morning so astutely pointed out, why it appears that the colleges, or the NCAA, not the colleges necessarily, were blasted in this ruling, meaning that players can be paid in some form or fashion. Really, players probably didn't get all they should have gotten, because why put a cap of $5,000 on there? Where does the $5,000 number come from? And some other guys have come on air as late as this morning and said things like, what I see is that there won't be 120 some odd Division I teams here very soon. There'll be 75. There'll be 70. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I don't mean to offend any Louisiana Monroe fans out there, but would it really hurt my feelings if Louisiana Monroe was in their own division, not playing the Alabamas and the Auburns anymore? It doesn't bother me. I mean, would it bother me if some of these, Miami of Ohio was not in Division I football anymore? It doesn't bother me. I mean, I want to see the best play the best. I don't care how we get there. And I think there is a place in this world for your Louisiana Monroes and your Miami of Ohio's. I just don't know that place needs to be playing SEC level teams, and that's just the way I feel about it. I want to see best on best.
If I were a Troy or a UAB fan, I would want to play in a division, not just a conference, but in a division that I had a chance of winning a national title. To me, I mean, and am I off for thinking that? Like Jacksonville State this year, they come into their division ranked, I think, 6th or 7th in the country. And last year they had one of their stronger years in the history. Now, they've won some national championships, don't get me wrong, but the strongest years I can remember in the last 20 years for Jacksonville State. And now they're ranked in the top 10 leading into the season. There's a lot of merit that goes with that personally. I mean, your thoughts, Luke? I
think you're right thinking as a fan or maybe even as a player, even though players always love to say, we want to play the best, we can get there. Look, Troy and UAB can't get to the college football playoff with the tickets. I mean, they just can't get there. I mean, I don't mean that as an offensive thing. They can't get there. It's not set up for them to be able to get there. But as a college, as the university, if you're Troy, yeah, you probably dig playing Georgia, or you dig play in Oklahoma State because you get a big check when you do it. If you're UAB, you get a big check to play LSU. I mean, you like that. And maybe that big check's about to go away, and that could be a problem.
We got a phone call. Caller, you're on the Saturday Sports Countdown. Yes, caller, you there with us? And we'll try to go back to the phone lines. Daniel, I think we lost that phone call. We do have David's name in the hat, so we'll take some more. 256-234-6221. Check out our social media. Justin will put up a picture of the Auburn and Alabama T-shirts. It was a she that called in, so, ma'am, please call us back. Let us know. And, look, just let us know which high school program in our area that you'll be cheering for, or if you got a question for us on Auburn and Alabama football, we'd love to talk about it. Luke, give us some specifics. And I know that we're all just speculating at this point, but give me some specifics that you think will change in the next year now that all votes have been passed and the Power 5 conferences have the autonomy that they're looking for.
Well, I think you'll start to see some better scheduling. I think you'll start to see players are going to get a stipend of some description. I don't know exactly how this is going to be. I believe this ruling of $2,000 to $5,000 will definitely be appealed, and I don't know. I think both sides will appeal it because I don't think either side's very happy with it. But I think that you'll see players start being able to get paid somehow, some way, and it's going to change college football. It's going to change the way we look at it too, because when you're out there right now, and Alabama and Auburn fans can joke with one another about, well, the so-and-so should be good, you're paying him enough, et cetera, et cetera. But now you're going to be able to say it, and you're going to be able to mean it. And if a player's out there getting paid, do we feel worse about possibly cutting him? I mean, would you feel terrible if Gus Malzahn said, you know what, as a quarterback, we're paying you $25,000 a year, but you're not getting it done, we're going to get somebody else, and bye-bye now? I mean, does it work that way? I don't know how it's going to work, but it's going to change the face of college football.
We'd love to hear from you, the caller out there, 256-234-6221. How do you see it changing the face of college football, college athletics in general? Be thinking about it as we come back at the top of the hour break, Luke. What is this going to do to the other sports? I know that it's going to change football, but what does it do to the other sports down? Maybe not basketball as much, or maybe it will. There may be more money to go out for basketball, some for baseball also, but what does it do to some of the other sports? And we'll delve into that as we come back. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
3, no Brett yet. 2, 1.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. We're live on location at JR Sports Bar and Grill. Make sure to come out. Bring your kids out in uniform all season long. They'll eat off the kids' menu for $1.99. And JR's now has weekly specials, weekly happy hour specials from 4 to 6, Monday through Friday. So make sure to start coming out to JR's after work. It's a good place to come out and wind down, Luke.
Yeah, and they've got homemade chips over here. They're fantastic. I hadn't had those before. I mean, they just kind of sprung those on me today. Remember that time they sprung those fried Oreos on me? They don't do them anymore. Thank God I don't think they could keep them in stock because Austin and I ate them all.
Austin ate them out of house and home with those fried Oreos. But, again, love to hear from you, 256-234-6221. Going to give away some of the Sports Blitz 2014 T-shirts, Auburn and Alabama. Social media, we'll give away one today, as well as all our phone calls. We'll put a name in the hat and give away one of those at the end of the show. Autonomy. Luke, I do worry a bit about the peripheral sports. And I worry not about the top 65 or 70 teams in the country, but I worry about those teams like, say, you coming out of high school. Let me throw this one out there. You were a prospect coming out of high school in basketball, not by Auburn and Alabama, but by a much smaller program. And am I off by thinking that maybe some of these scholarship offers to any of the other colleges, or am I thinking a little bit too much into it?
I think you're thinking a little too much into it. Because I don't think teams are going to give up the sport. I don't think a lot of teams will give up the sport. I think there just may be a new division, and they may not have quite as much money. And if you want to be a fan of true amateur athletics, then I think you can follow those guys. I mean, you can follow what will be a division with the Louisiana Monroes. I mean, you can do that now with your North Alabamas and teams like that. That's great. I think that's admirable. It's fantastic. I choose to follow the SEC. And I know when I venture into SEC fandom, I know that it's a dirty game out there. I know that there's some kids at Alabama and Auburn and LSU and Mississippi State that, let's face it, have no business probably being in college from an academic standpoint. But they do have business being in college from an athletic standpoint. I mean, again, and Alabama and Auburn fans, take them out of the equation for a second. I don't want to throw any names out there necessarily because I'm not turning this to an Iron Bowl thing. But there are guys that have been on both teams that would never even sniff the campus of Alabama and Auburn if they couldn't throw the football or catch the football or tackle somebody with the football. I mean, and we know that, and we accept it. We're okay with it. We're okay with the rumors out there. I mean, when Derrick Henry takes a picture and puts it on Instagram with a brand new car, Alabama fans know, okay, we're probably going to catch some heat from that, whether or not his parents probably paid for it or not. I mean, I'm sure they did. Why can't they have money? When Nick Marshall gets pulled over for a citation, he's driving a purple Charger, which is the irony of all ironies. Auburn fans should catch some heck for that, and they did, but they're okay with it. And they're okay to put their arm around him because he's throwing the football well for him. I mean, that's just the way it rolls. And if we all celebrated amateur athletics like a lot of people claim that they would, they'd follow North Alabama instead of following Alabama and Auburn. That's the way I believe that.
How much more does it hurt these programs, though, is if you look at Auburn last year and they report a deficit in athletics as a whole. And we know that there's a ton of money coming in for the football program. But my question to you, Luke, is how much more are the football players going to receive than the track athlete?
A lot more, and they should.
How does that work out, do you think?
I don't know, and that's going to be the tricky part because that's sort of the $2,000 to $5,000 range, and I believe that $2,000 to $5,000 range that the judge set was for all athletics. So, I mean, every athlete would probably be getting something.
Who made up that number, by the way?
The judge did. I mean, that's what Jay Billis was saying. Where did $2,000 to $5,000 come out? Why not say $1 to $100 million? Because there are some players on every campus in America that are more valuable than others. Jameis Winston may be the most valuable player in the country right now.
Yeah, Johnny Manziel was the same.
Johnny Manziel was
Cam
worth
Newton
a lot more
than
the backup center. That's just the way it is. And so I also get I think it's laughable when people say, well, you talked about it off air. I know that, I knew a wrestler in Iowa, and he works just as hard as the football players. That's great. Coal miners work harder than we do up here at Sports Blitz. But they may not make as much. I mean, life takes you different places, and if the wrestler really wants to make the more money, he better learn how to tackle somebody. I mean, you can go be a wrestler, but nobody's watching it. You and your parents and your aunt and uncle maybe, and a few other folks, but it's not as popular a sport as football. That's just the way it works. I mean, if you want to make the money, go play the popular sports. That's where the money is. Nobody's buying a wrestler's unitard. I mean, everybody's buying Johnny Manziel's football jersey, though.
Another vote yesterday. Can you fill in what happened yesterday? We know that the autonomy vote went through. The Power 5 conferences will have the option to put together a plan that I believe will be voted on again in January. Whether that plan works out, I'm confused on how all of this works. But there was a new setup that went through yesterday, and what does it exactly mean, Luke?
What it's telling me is it was a completely empty vote, because it's almost like, Randy, when you're at the house with your lovely bride and y'all say, we're going to have a vote, or we're going to do what she wants tonight or what I'm going to do tonight. And you can vote all you want to, but you're doing what she wants to do. That's exactly what this vote was. If they didn't vote for autonomy, the Power 5 was going to say, we're going to take autonomy. I mean, we're going to be autonomous one way or the other. Now, you can vote for it and look like you actually have some power, but NCAA, you don't have any power anymore. And I think that that's maybe a good thing. I mean, I think the NCAA got fat and happy, and they have not been a leader like they want the kids on these teams to be. So I feel like it's great that the Power 5 conferences have made this move, because, look, it's all moving this way. Nobody can stop it. If they want to have some kind of empty suit vote for it, great. But I think in the end, this is where it's all going. And if you want to follow college athletics, you better learn to love it.
256-234-6221. Call in if you want to talk about the NCAA Power 5 autonomy. We'll take the phone calls on that. A couple more minutes on this segment. I want to throw out one that we probably had more phone calls this past week on Sports Call than any, and that is steroid use in Major League Baseball and the case that's out. And what happened, actually, Brett had a question. What exactly happened 7 years ago today on this date? And I think it was on Thursday. And it was actually the date that Barry Bonds broke the all-time home runs record, and nobody knows it, and nobody talks about it, and nobody cares. And even at the time, you could look at his head size, which had grown to morph what it was at one time. You could tell that he was not on the up and up. So Major League Baseball has always said we're a numbers sport. We idolize those that had 61 home runs and 714 home runs in a career, and we know who hit 400 last. Luke, what happens with Major League Baseball? It's no longer a numbers game if you're saying, well, I'm going to take this generation, but I'm not going to take the other.
You know, at first I was like, okay, none of these numbers can count because it's obvious they were all HGHing or steroiding or something. But I'd be naive to say that all this type of stuff doesn't go on in college. It doesn't go on in pro football or basketball or whatever. I think that some of these things go on in every sport, and there's always a caveat to everything. Look, for the longest time in college football, freshmen couldn't play. So why do those records get to stand? I mean, if you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if in the NBA, for the longest time, players didn't come out straight from high school, and now they don't again. But sometimes they did, so a player could theoretically play longer. Kobe Bryant actually had a couple of extra years in the NBA because he didn't have to go to college. So maybe his point totals are skewed versus somebody like Michael Jordan who went to college for 3 years. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
And so there's always a caveat. There's always an asterisk. And you know what? Baseball allowed it to go on. They allowed it to happen. It's a shame that they did, but I think the numbers are what they are, and I think you leave them in there. Don't put the asterisks there, but you can talk about it. There can always be. For the longest time, African Americans couldn't play.
Yeah.
So I mean, how fair are those numbers? How fair are Babe Ruth's numbers that he didn't have to go up against several African American players? So there's always a something in there. You might as well leave those in there. We all know what happened. We all know that it was dirty and terrible. And why we all feel so ashamed of it as Americans, I think, is because we all knew it was going on and we allowed it to happen. It all made us feel so good. I mean, I don't even like baseball, but watching Mark McGwire and Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa there for a little bit intrigued me. I loved watching it. Every time it was on, I enjoyed it. And then when the dirty truth was revealed, I felt bad about it. I hated baseball even more, and I really hadn't gotten back into it since. But I was part of the problem. I didn't call for investigations. I mean, not that I could have done much, but I'll say, us as a collective public, we didn't scream loud enough, and we should have.
And I'll say this, and I know we're up against a break, but I've always said on this program, I think it's humorous to think that Major League Baseball had all of this going on and football didn't. Because, look, if the numbers are out there that were doing it in Major League Baseball, I can assure you that there were that many doing it in football to keep up with the Joneses there. Had to.
And doing it now.
And you can see the body stop. But what professional football has said, we're going to turn a blind eye to HGH. We know what's going on, but we're not even going to test for that one. Because we don't – I mean, really, it's a black eye on the program. It's kind of like the NBA testing for marijuana use. They don't do it. I mean, why would you want to give the media a story that they can grasp on like this Major League Baseball story and run with it?
Yeah, the PR for Major League Baseball was so bad for so long. Meanwhile, the PR for NFL, amidst all these concussions and lawsuits and HGH and guys beating their wives, somehow the NFL skates on all of it, and it's just because their PR is better.
256-234-6221. Love to hear from you. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Three, two, one.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. Don't forget, we've got Auburn and Alabama Sports Blitz T-shirts that we're giving away. You can go to social media. Justin Clayton, our producer extraordinaire, and Daniel back there, they've got a contest going on there, and we'll give away one of these T-shirts throughout the day today. We'll let the social media thing continue on throughout the day, and Justin will pass that along. But if you want to call in for the final 40 minutes of the program, I'm going to put all the names in the hat and give away one of these Auburn or Alabama T-shirts at the end of the program.
I'm wearing one right now. They're awesome. They feel great. And I know we can't get Brett on the phone now. I just saw that commercial for LXC Marine where he's in the boat, and I think he's already on the other side of the lake as fast as he was going in that thing.
Let's talk about, for the last 40 minutes, what we normally talk about throughout the week, and that's Auburn and Alabama football, SEC football in general. We've started off with Auburn and Alabama talk. Let's go ahead and jump into it here in the second hour also and fill in. You talked a lot about Jacob Coker. Today will be a telltale sign who the starting quarterback will be for Alabama.
It will be, and look, I'm telling you, folks, it's still going to be Jacob Coker. I really firmly believe that. But whereas I thought it was 110% going to be Jacob Coker the starter against West Virginia, I now believe that's about 85%. And it's a combination of Jacob Coker coming back down to earth a little bit and Blake Sims improving his play. It doesn't have, I don't believe, one iota this has divided the team at all. In fact, I had some folks listening to other sports shows or this past week, and on a national show, this topic was brought up, and one of the co-hosts, who happens to be a former player, said, you know, people always used to love to talk about what divides the team and racial harmony. He said, in fall camp, he said, everybody's busting their butt so hard that they're not really worried about all that stuff. They can't worry about who's going to win this other position. They got to worry about their own position. He said, I can assure you, especially a place like Alabama, where defensive line is shuffling all the time, everybody, all the defensive linemen, no matter what color they are or whatever's going on, they are going up to the line trying to win their job. They want to be the starters. They can't worry about the quarterback. They don't care who the starting quarterback is. They got to do their job. And I believe that, especially for the Alabama side. And I believe that's always overplayed. I would be totally okay with Blake Sims winning this job because I know he would go out there and win it. So, and he's a senior. He's played a little bit. He's got some experience. Here's an interesting topic, Randy. I want you to chime in. Jimmy Stein and I on Talking Tuscaloosa podcast talked about this. If Blake Sims were at Auburn in that particular style, I think Blake Sims could be the starter. I think Blake Sims would be in there doing his thing. He's that kind of player. It just so happens he's with a different style, so it may not jive with him quite as much. It doesn't have anything to do with anything other than he may not get to utilize his talents the way he should. But he loves Alabama. He's never wavered on that. He's never given consideration to transferring. And so he stuck it out. It's admirable. But at the same time, it may have cost him some playing time.
I will say this. When you bring that up, one of the things that I really like about Nick Marshall is his demeanor on the field and his cool under pressure, Luke. At first, showed its pretty head to us Auburn fans in Mississippi State game when he drove the team down the field and made the pass in the corner of the end zone. One thing I question about Sims, anytime the lights have been on that I've watched him, I say that guy's not very good. When he came in and mop-up duty for A.J. McCarron, that guy's not very good. And then all last spring we heard Sims is really turning the corner. Sims may be the starter. They can get whoever they want in here. Blake Sims may be the starter. And then the spring game, the lights came on, and he looked like a deer in headlights again. Some kids can do it when everybody's watching them, and some can't. Nick Marshall, to me, just always gave – I know that's my Auburn feeling, Luke, but that is the honest opinion that I have for both of those players.
Blake may need to take a ride in the passenger seat with Nick Marshall one time to calm down.
That'd be fine. I'd be all for it.
I think that you're absolutely right. I think that Blake does look like the kind of guy who may not do well under pressure situations. Now, I tend not to make too much out of the mop-up duty stuff because you can either look fantastic against the other team's mop-ups or you can look terrible because you're playing with scrubs too. True. who are scrubs for a reason. They can't catch the ball either. They fumble.
Yeah, but I'd say Bama scrubs.
Bama scrubs are a little different.
Bama scrubs are probably better than the opposing team that they're playing.
Okay, I agree with you. At the same time, they don't have experience. I agree with you. Look, I'm a Jacob Coker guy. I think I want to see him out there because of the measurables. But if Blake Sims wins this thing, hey, 2 thumbs up from me.
Let's go to the phone lines. Brett Pritchard, you're on Sports Blitz, buddy.
Hey, guys, what's going on this morning?
Now we are talking Auburn and Alabama football. We've talked a lot about high school football. I know that you're looking forward to both.
I am. I cannot believe that y'all would be talking about a subject like Auburn and Alabama. I mean, what in the world would this y'all to be talking about Auburn and Alabama football right now?
Well, we just wanted to stop the influx of UAB calls.
Exactly. I knew somebody had to change the subject. But, yeah, it is. It's a fun time of year, obviously, for all of us, especially all of us that are getting ready for high school and college football. And, you know, we get just as excited, I think, about high school as we do college because we're so involved in it. But heard earlier on in the show, the first hour, you guys talking about the different classifications. I still think we're all trying to get adjusted to the two teams that are in each respective class. And you look up and see Spanish Fort. We all debated whether Spanish Fort would be the number one ranked team coming out in 6A, and guess what? Lo and behold, they were. So it shows you what kind of program they have. And Luke, you and Scott are going to call a well of a game right out of the gate, the Champions Challenge, number 3 versus number 5, Carver and Opelika.
Yeah, cannot wait for it. That's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of talent on the field that night. There's some definite Division I prospects.
Yeah, a lot of Division I prospects, and just excited about how this season goes. I'll quickly talk about Ben Russell because I talked to a couple of coaches yesterday. Guys, they're very excited about this team. I know we lost a lot of players, and we lost a 4-year starter and Brian Horn at quarterback. After talking to Coach Horn, he's very, very upbeat, very excited about the defensive side of the ball, excited about the new style of offense that we're going to be running. It's not going to be really new. They had that option-style offense implemented when Brown was here, but going to have a true option-style quarterback back there behind center and Tyree Gray, and, of course, Joel Grogan will mix in and out. But I was looking through the schedule, guys. It's going to be a fun year, Randy. We're going to have a lot of great teams that we're going to face off against, and on any given night, we could beat any of them, and on any given night, they could beat us.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you make, and a couple of games that I point to in the first 5 that I'm still thrilled that we've got Opelika on the schedule. Opelika is a very tough opponent, but it's always been one that we bring a big crowd. They bring a big crowd. I think if you can ever get two teams together that it is closely matched like it has been for the last several years, and they both bring big crowds, it's a win-win for both. It's even bigger this year now that they're region opponents in Class 6A, and I'm really, really looking forward to going over Central Clay County in the second week of the season. Coach Horn going back to his hometown where he won 6 state championships and take on a program that is coming in Class 5A as ranked the number 4 team in the state.
Well, isn't it a lot more fun when you show up, the stadium's packed, and, it's not a cut on some of the teams that we played in the past. But me and you knew driving to the stadium, there was going to be nobody on the other side of the field, and it loses a lot of its atmosphere. You're not going to have that problem this year playing in Oxford, playing a Clay Central, playing in Opelika, playing a Eufaula, playing all those type teams. The atmosphere is going to be there, and plus the other side of it. I know, you don't want to look at this solely from a business standpoint, but in this day and age where you're trying to raise funds and get as much money as you can for your program, it is a big deal to bring big gates in. And you want to schedule schools you have a lot in common with. We play homecoming against Stanhope. I'm glad to see them back on the schedule this year. Those are going to be big money gates for teams that, when we go on the road, they're going to make a lot of money because our fans travel. And these teams that we have coming into the Sportz this year, we're going to make a lot of money because their fans travel.
Well, Brett, we appreciate your phone call up against a break, buddy, and we're going to talk more about high school football. If you want to call in and talk about high school football, we'd love to hear from you. We'll talk until we're blue in the face on that, and then Luke and I are going to close out the remaining 30 minutes of the program and talk about Auburn and Alabama and try to highlight opening weeks of practice, players that we expect to get over the hump, that we will see out on the field making more of an impact than we've seen in years past. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
back?
Yeah.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. Got about 30 minutes left here on the program. 800-782-0108, 256-234-6221. It's lunchtime, Luke, and you and I are down here stuffing our face. Not a better place in Alexander City to come out than JR's.
Totally agree. I mean, again, I just was bragging on those homemade potato chips. That's hard to beat.
Talk about the offensive line for Alabama. If there was one part of the team last year that I think was a disappointment in comparison to years before, it was the offensive front. Expectations this year?
I think expectations are very high. One guy that's really come in and performed very well here lately is Alphonse Taylor, Shank Taylor.
Yeah.
And he's big, he's strong, he's mean.
We saw him at Davidson, by the way. He was playing mainly deep. No, I think he was playing offensive line, but a lot of defensive line when Benjamin Russell went down and played Davidson a few years ago and actually beat him down there in Mobile.
And Leon Brown, who's the projected starter, he's been out so far. And some other offensive linemen have had a chance to come in and play. And I think that Shank Taylor is a guy that's looked good along the line. It's going to be one of those things, to me, as much as anything, chemistry is important along the offensive line. You got to know, you got to be able to trust the guy beside you. And hopefully that chemistry will be there. I'm like you. I don't think the chemistry was there necessarily last year. Alabama can skate by on talent sometimes. But sometimes you get into a situation like you did against Auburn last year, and Auburn's got a little bit of talent too, and Auburn had a little bit more want to, and they had more chemistry, and Alabama couldn't make up that difference.
They definitely couldn't. And over there on the defensive side of the ball for Alabama, you've recruited well at the linebacker position, but C.J. Mosley has covered up, I think, poor play from some huge recruits that you've gotten over the last several years. I thought a lot of Reggie Ragland coming out of high school. We'll see if he makes the turn for the better this year. We all thought a lot of Reuben Foster coming out of high school. Which one of those two players will see more playing time this year? And talk about the rest of the linebacking core.
Until Reuben Foster plays more disciplined, I think it'll be Reggie Ragland. I think Reuben Foster is the flashier hitter. He can make the bigger play. He can force a fumble, but he's just as prone to whiff on a tackle. Everybody wants to see him play. But I hearken back to the days of a running back named Shanto Ray that went to Alabama, that if you saw his highlight tape, you said, oh, that guy's going to come in and step in and play immediately. And then it just never materialized because sometimes players don't get it. Now, I'm not giving up on Reuben Foster. He's only been there a year, so maybe we're expecting a little bit too much. But Reggie Ragland's been there a few years now, so I expect him to step in. I'll tell you a guy who has come in and performed incredibly well is Sean Deion Hamilton. This is a guy that may be running with the ones. He may be your new C.J. Mosley.
Interesting.
Now, I hesitate to compare anybody to C.J., arguably on the Mount Rushmore of Alabama linebackers. But I feel like Sean Deion Hamilton has come in and performed admirably. He's a little bit bigger than people give him credit for. He's definitely a better hitter than people give him credit for. He's fast. He's strong. I think that this is a guy that, over some more heralded linebackers, may get an incredible opportunity, and I think we'll see it today.
256-234-6221. Call in the remainder of the program. We're going to put your name in the hat and give away one more of the Auburn or Alabama Sports Blitz 2014 T-shirts. Update on Rashaan Evans. Will he see the field year one?
Yes. Oh, my goodness, yes. He is killing it out there. He's fast. He's strong. He's everything I thought he was going to be. I mean, I watched him in that Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game, and he just blew me away. He was easily the MVP. He's a good kid, and I just think he's coming in there. He's soaking it all in. I think you'll see Rashaan Evans against West Virginia, no doubt about it.
We'll talk a little bit about Auburn right here, and in the secondary will be some new faces for Auburn, and I'm excited to see Moncrief from the Prattville area. Luke, you and I saw him. Was it been 3 years ago? State championship game. Prattville won that state title.
Justin Thomas.
Yeah, and Justin Thomas was at quarterback. But Moncrief he's like 6'3", 218. He's a prototypical safety. He's one of those guys that Alabama seems like they've always gotten, and we haven't. And we've had to make a corner into a safety that has played out. But I think Moncrief is going to be one. He's already getting the nod. He will start back at safety for Auburn. I'm excited about him. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the other Auburn players back in the secondary, and we'll take your phone calls, 256-234-6221. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. Got about 20 minutes left here on the program. Lunch special that we have out here at JR's each and every time you hear us on the air. $6.99 snack wing basket with a drink. Love for you to come out. We've had a few already asking questions. Whether we have the answers for you, I don't know, but we're much like you. We tune in. We like to read the message boards. We like to hear what we can and talk a lot about football, so that's what this program will be, and hopefully you're enjoying out there from 10 to 12. We're talking Auburn football. We talked a lot about Alabama. If you got questions for us, call in. I think the running back position for Auburn, much like Alabama, it's a very, very deep field, Luke. There's a lot of talent on both teams, and I can't really point back to very many years where we've had as deep a talent on both teams as we have this upcoming year. Cameron Artis-Payne, Corey Grant, Peyton Barber, they'll be the three that were there last year. Which one of them emerges as the top back? And the dark horse is Rock Thomas, and you've seen Rock Thomas. Some of your thoughts.
I love Rock Thomas, and I saw a picture of him recently in an Auburn jersey, and he's still, I mean, he's built very, very well. Peyton Barber put him in the mix, kind of, sort of. I think Auburn's got a nice situation at running back. I don't think they have anybody that's going to be as good as Trey Mason was last year, but, I mean, that may not be that big of a deal in this particular offense as long as Nick Marshall can still conceal the ball as well as he could on those little draw plays that he did. I mean, he was just fantastic. As far as Alabama goes, here's the one thing that I'm concerned with Alabama. T.J. Yeldon's great. He may end up being an all-time leading rusher. Derrick Henry, loads of potential. We know about that. But he's kind of untested. Kenyon Drake, he's fantastic. I love him when he's out there. I think he could be fabulous on something like a wheel route. He's always in the doghouse, though. And then you've got Alti Tenpenny, who comes in with all these accolades, but he hadn't really been able to see the field, and he's had one or two little off-the-field incidents. And then you've got Tyron Jones, who's a player that came in with that same big running back group of Tenpenny, Henry, Alvin Kamara, and then himself, but he hadn't been able to crack the lineup. So while I know all of Alabama's names, and I guess you could say this about Auburn too. I mean, Cameron Artis-Payne, I mean, he's a nice player. I mean, but he's not Trey Mason. Corey Grant, he's a nice player, and he's super fast. But, do I think he'll be all SEC? No. So I know all these names, and that makes us feel like maybe we've got better situations than we actually do. Because what if one of these guys for either team goes down, and then all of a sudden you're looking at, instead of Rock Thomas comes in with all his potential, you're like, oh, my God, we got this inexperienced true freshman running back playing.
Well, there's still a lot of numbers there. I mean, it's going to take multiple to go down to get to that level. And that was the point I'm making. I can't remember back where one back goes down, we pull in another, and I'm not sure that we have any drop-off. And Kenyon Drake, if he ends up the guy at Alabama, may be better than the other two.
He is, but there's a reason that he hadn't played as much as he has, and that's what worries me. I mean, there's a reason Derrick Henry wasn't out there much. There's a reason Alti Tenpenny wasn't out there. He hadn't earned the coach's trust.
Now,
that's the problem.
But what is the reason is the question, because, look, if anybody watched the Oklahoma game, there was no reason, in my view, that Derrick Henry wasn't playing football against Auburn.
My guess was Derrick Henry couldn't pick up blitzes as well as maybe the coaches want him to. That's my only guess. That's the only theory I have. This is not based on any fact or anything that I've learned from any of the coaches. This is my own personal theory because it's the only thing I can wrap my head around. I mean, when I watched him play against Oklahoma, my thought was, why hadn't he played forever and ever and ever? Because he looks fabulous.
256-234-6221. One of the feel-good stories of college football this upcoming year will be Sean Coleman. He looks to get the nod at left tackle, taking over for top 2 draft pick in Greg Robinson this past year in the NFL draft, who, by the way, I watched last night. He got the nod and started for the St. Louis Rams. But Sean Coleman, I thought he looked great. He looks the part on the field. It's about the only way that you can weigh in on offensive line unless I'm looking at film, but he definitely looked like he deserved to be there.
And I don't mean to change subject, but how did Trey Mason look for the Rams?
I didn't watch the second half. He didn't get a lot of the carries in the first half. Zach Stacy was the starter for the Rams. He was the ex-running back for Vandy. He's a little bowling ball out there. He's a good fit. He was a great back in the SEC
from the state of Alabama.
Yeah, both of those backs will will definitely get the nod over there. But Sean Coleman, back to that story, has leukemia. We saw him at the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game, 4 or 5-star, depending on which site you look, coming out of the state of Mississippi, all the size that you would ever want. So here's this Auburn fan saying, I hope this story only gets better, Luke.
Yeah, it really is a good story. I mean, people should follow this. This is going to be one of those tearjerker game day stories that whenever Auburn has a game that's featured on game day, this will be the story you get to hear about.
256-234-6221. A couple of players I thought, as I watched the national championship game for about the 6th time this week, last night, I couldn't watch it for a while, but now every time I watch it, I realize, especially in the first half, how much better Auburn's defense played at the end of last year. And they didn't look all that great, I wouldn't say, in the SEC championship game, but by the time the national championship came around, in the first half, I'm not sure, other than Jameis Winston, we let that fake punt, and we allow Williams to beat us to the corner and give up that. Other than that, they wouldn't have scored but once there in the first half. You couldn't ask for much better. The one player defensively that I think has an opportunity at the linebacking core to be an all-SEC type of player is Chris Frost. Chris Frost, sideline to sideline, especially back in the passing game, Luke, he seems to be starting to get it, and I think he's going to be an all-SEC type for Auburn.
The one thing I always say about Auburn and or the types of teams like that run this type of offense, it's so hard for their defense to get acclimated, but no matter how much talent they have, because they're used to the fast pace and running around, and they're used to giving up a lot of points because they do in practice. I mean, it becomes a mental thing. You rarely see a team, I don't know that I've ever seen. I mean, name an Oregon team that had a defense that just scared you to death. I mean, they don't have them because it's a mental persona of the whole team. But I thought Auburn did as good a job as you could do in that, especially in the national championship game, at least in the first half. Second half, Auburn defense didn't look that great. And give a lot of credit to Florida State. It's not – I always hear Auburn fans say, well, we were 13 seconds away from a national championship. I mean, give Florida State a lot of credit.
Yeah.
I mean, they came back and did what they had to do to beat a team that was going to be hard to beat when they were down 21-3. And so I feel like Florida State doesn't get enough credit sometimes, but they just turned it on, and they were powerful offensively, and I think that it eventually caught up to Auburn a little bit.
I think it will be in the secondary where Auburn will have to make a strong transition to be a better football team this year. They do look stronger in the secondary. We will definitely see a lot more of Rudy Ford back in the secondary. Moncrief will look to get the start. He's only a junior, a big hitter, big play guy back in the secondary, and a lot of nice things are being said about Stephen Roberts out of Opelika, that he has turned some heads in the early going, and we saw him in the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game. And I tell you, the one thing that I thought watching the two of y'all call the game last year for the HSA Radio Network, both the corners for Alabama, in years past, you'll see a cornerback in that game, and they weigh 170, 175 pounds. I looked out there last year, and I saw Humphrey on one side, and I saw Stephen Roberts on the other, and I remember looking at Stephen Roberts and saying, you know, that kid looks like he's already SEC size ready, 185, 190 pounds coming out of high school, and we just haven't seen that a lot in that game.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Usually, especially in high school, your cornerbacks are a little bit smaller.
True.
But we have seen cornerbacks get larger and larger and larger. And, man, a guy like Stephen Roberts or a guy like Marlon Humphrey, they're prototypes. I mean, that's what the NFL wants.
256-234-6221. We're going to go ahead and take our last break here on the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. When we come back, we'll continue to take your phone calls. Got a lot of interaction going on social media right now. Going to give away an Auburn or Alabama T-shirt as you continue to interact with us there. Do that throughout the program. We'll go ahead and give this one away at the end of this one. More of the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Oh, also, Terry from Kowaliga is holding. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. One more segment here on the program. Quick reminder before I forget going out of the program, the spread with Daniel Vest and Seth Hagen will return to the airwaves tomorrow, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. on Kowaliga Country 97.5. They'll talk football, of course, and we'll cross over to some NFL type of games as it happens, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. once the season starts. So make sure to be on the lookout for that. We'll pass it along on all of our social media outlets. Let's go back to the phone lines. Terry in Talladega, you're on Sports Blitz.
Hey, guys, how y'all doing today?
Good, Terry. Good to hear from you, buddy.
Hey, listen, guys, I agree with what y'all were talking about on the Auburn secondary. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch next year because wholesale changes, major changes, schemes. You don't know what the situation with Carl Lawson, with, the pressure, because a great pass rush can make a secondary look awesome, so or better than it is. But it will be fun to watch. But what I want to ask you guys about is the debut tonight of Johnny Football. Are y'all going to watch? And what do y'all expect?
Yeah, I'm planning on watching. I'm hoping to. I may not be here watching it, but I'm going to be somewhere watching it, and I'm looking forward to it. Look, Brian Hoyer's going to start, right? I mean, that tells me a little bit right there. I would have drafted Johnny Football. I have no qualms with Cleveland drafting Johnny Football, especially where they did. I'm pulling for the guy. I don't know why. He's the absolute opposite in a lot of regards of what I want my son to be. But something about him is fun and intriguing, and I want to see him on the field.
Well, I think, Luke, honestly, he reminds us of football in the backyards when we were kids.
True.
That's how he plays the games. That's why I'm kind of interested to see how his style of play fits to the NFL because he is such a, improv quarterback.
True.
Very good point, and I've heard a lot of people excited to watch him, and he's as big a name. I think his jersey's the #1 seller in the NFL.
Isn't that
right
crazy?
now. That is crazy, and he has been the talk. He was even the talk of SEC Media Days this year. That's what.
Yeah, wasn't there even
player.
a question asked to Kevin Sumlin who he's already gone? Why do you ask me about him?
It is. It's crazy. And Terry, we're looking forward to continuing to have you on the program. And by the way, as we're only got a couple of minutes left, congratulations to you. You win one of our Auburn or Alabama Sports Blitz T-shirts. I know exactly which one you want. War Eagle to you, buddy. And you can pick that one up when you're over this way. Okay.
I sure will, guys. Y'all take care.
Thank you. And quickly, as we go down through and try to pull out some of these tons of names that are pushing it through on Twitter as we only got a couple of minutes left. Congratulations to Nikki Corley as she won the first drawing for the Auburn or Alabama T-shirts. The numbers that I saw coming into this break, we had 41 retweets and 21 favorites, which tells me there's a lot more Alabama fans out there than we give credit for, Luke.
Hold it. I'm going to update it for you. 46 retweets and 21 favorites.
We thought living in this area and being Sports Blitz programming and being skewed, as we hear all the time, that there's a lot more Auburn fans out there that listen to this program. I would beg to differ. A lot of Bammers out there, and Luke, that's all.
We're just more committed.
Y'all are
figuratively and literally.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Come on out to JR's. Have a great lunch. For Luke Robinson, I'm Randy Lee saying thanks for tuning in to the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown.
Thanks, Randy.
All right.
How you doing, brother? Good, good. Well, it's warm enough to have been this week. Good.